So this is a rapid charger then, Rhys?
Yeah, so they don't always look exactly the same as this, but fundamentally they're a big white box. So on here we have our two connections, and as we said inside about the older Apple and Android,
Yes.
this is where things change slightly. Now, in all fairness, the second one that I'll come on to in a second is probably the most popular now, and that will be the standard going forwards.
Right.
But because the older vehicles out there started off with a different type of charger, obviously that is continued to make sure that people that have the older vehicles can still rapid charge their cars.
Okay, yep.
So this one is called CHAdeMO, and this
Yep.
one is called CCS, and I'll come back to explain a little bit more about why that's called CCS in a second. So with the CHAdeMO, this was the original rapid charger.
Okay.
So when we first had rapid chargers in the UK, they were generally up to around 50 kilowatts.
Yeah.
Chargers now, you know, we can get standard chargers on all these different networks, 150 kilowatts, sometimes more. With the CHAdeMO, this was the standard. So when everything came out in Japan, in America, etc., it was. Now in Japan now, and still in America now, this is what you will see everywhere. This is what they've stuck with. Unfortunately, in the UK, we've kind of gone with Europe, even though we didn't necessarily need to anymore. And we're going down the CCS route. But that is because we sell an awful lot of European manufactured cars here, whereas in the States, they still very, very patriotic, sell a lot of American cars.
Okay.
And Europe is going CCS. So that's your CHAdeMO.
Okay.
CCS, so as you can see with CCS, you've got the same sort of shape as your home charger there, with a couple of extras underneath, which is your positive and your negative for your rapid charge.
Right.
So actually, this is all about communication, and this is about charging from the rapid charger.
Okay.
Now, the reason it's called CCS, and that stands for Combined Charging System, and that means that you've got your home charger bit there, and then a bit bolted on the bottom for your rapid, combined together, Combined Charging System, and that's what it's called.
Right, I'm with you.
Now, the advantage of the CCS, of course, is that one, they are more prolific now. Every new charger has at least CCS CHAdeMO, and some of them are 2 CCSs. And of course, it does mean you have one flap and everything can be done through that one charging port. So it does make it a bit neater on the car as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Very nice, good stuff. So maintenance-wise then, again, these cars now full of electrics, full of mod cons, that sort of stuff. Is there a lot more maintenance involved in them?
No, there's actually less, because when you think there's certain parts of a vehicle that you're going to have to maintain, whether it's electric or petrol or a combination. And that's things like your brakes, your air conditioning unit, all of those consumable type things. That's not going to change. So you still got to check your brakes and your aircon and everything on an electric car, just like you have on a petrol car. But of course you have no spark plugs to change, no oil and fuel filters to change, no oil to change. Everything is done, it's plugged in. Battery checks are done all electronically. So actually, it's cheaper to maintain an electric car than it is a petrol, diesel or hybrid car. In fact, when you look at Nissan's monthly costs, it's quite significantly different between what you'll pay monthly for a service plan on an electric car and what you will pay on a petrol, and then more so for a diesel. So no, actually, your maintenance yearly on an electric vehicle is lower.
Amazing. I didn't expect you to say that. Brilliant. Okay, Rhys, so this is obviously a very beautiful looking car, but what are they actually like to drive, EVs? What are they like to drive?
I mean, they're great to drive, and I know it's easy for me to say that, and I would say get behind the wheel of one. If you've not driven an EV now, why haven't you? But if you've not driven an EV now, go and drive one, because everything that people say about them, instant torque, instant acceleration, etc., is all there. Is that important? Probably not day to day, but it does make your driving easier. So they're just great to drive, and of course they're quiet.
Yes.
You know, when people first drive an electric car, there's two things that they notice. First of all, when you first pull away and it doesn't make a noise, because they're so used to being in a petrol or diesel car. And secondly, when you're actually accelerating, passing somebody, it just happens, and there's no, I've got to wait for a kick down, I've got to wait for my gearbox to work, I've got to pop it into third gear and get my speed up before I go around someone. No. You've got a space to go, you go. So it's great to drive, instant torque, instant performance. That's better as well.
Well, it's all sounding very good. But what sort of features do electric vehicles have that maybe the petrol and diesel don't have? What sort of things do they have in there?
I mean, fundamentally, the thing to remember is driving an electric car is like driving an automatic petrol or diesel car. So if you've got people out there that are thinking, oh, I don't know about driving electric, it's going to be weird and all the rest of it, it's not. Once you're driving along, once you're on the road, it might be quiet, but it's just like driving an automatic.
And that being said, are all EVs automatic or are they manual? How does that work?
So in theory, they're all auto, although actually there's not really a gearbox in there as such. So you've got a reduction gear in there. So it reduces the performance from the motor. On the Leaf, for example, it can turn at 13,500 RPM. But so you have a reduction gear from the motor to the wheels. Okay. So basically, it's like turning on your power on your old scale electrics at home and turning it up, and the more you push the button, the faster it goes. And that is fundamentally what an electric vehicle is like. Okay. So while it's the same as driving an electric car in control-wise, in theory, there's no gearbox.
Okay, interesting. And sorry, I interrupted you talking about the features as well.
So fundamentally, a lot of things are going to be the same, but where the electric vehicle is different is in driving it, great. But what you also want to do, of course, is get them as much out of the range as you possibly can do. So all EVs have different things, and different manufacturers do them in different ways, but all EVs have things built in to help you regenerate. Okay. And of course, when you're driving an EV, when you back off of the accelerator or you brake, your electric motor switches itself and turns itself into a generator, and that generator is going to then generate power back into the battery. But that regeneration is important because the more you regenerate, the more you're getting back into the battery. So fundamentally, they're going to drive the same, but there's always going to be a few features like that from a driving point of view.
Amazing. No, it does sound great. So I want to talk about business next. So let's take a sit down.
Let's take a seat.